Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Geo. I will be your conductor this evening as we step beyond the veil. I'm joined by my lovely wife and your conductress, Mrs. Geo.
Good evening, everyone.
And Mrs. Geo has requested that I wear my robe this evening. And I was wearing my leather jacket because she was wearing the robe, and that we dim the lights for this particular broadcast too. I kind of like this. It kind of looks kind of cool. Yeah, we drank some ayahuasca about 3 hours ago. Mm-hmm. And so we've come down from the experience, still seeing tracers, still kind of halfway in hyperspace, halfway out of hyperspace. But we were downstairs talking about all of these secrets of the universe and the mysteries of the cosmos and raw consciousness and everything. We said, you know what? If we're going to come down, there's only one way to do it, and there's only one way to have these discussions, and that is with all of our friends and family here on Beyond the Veil. Like, you know, one of the revelations for me, the main revelation was, and it's not a revelation, it's more confirmation, that we have really built an incredible, incredible community. Like, this isn't just a radio show, it's a community of people who are all connected. And during our experiences, we were talking about a lot of the people that we interact with. And I know that Nick Bravo, for example, he's been asking for a special broadcast all week. And so we didn't want to let you guys and gals down out there. But, you know, we feel so connected with each and every one of you out there, everybody that leaves comments, that sends awesome experiences via email, comes to the chat room, hangs out. Of course, T-Fetch as well in the...
TJ. His name is TJ, actually.
Oh, TJ. Okay, yeah, TJ. Yeah, so... yeah, big supporters of Beyond the Veil, and you guys and gals are just freaking amazing out there. So we wanted to talk with you about what we have experienced this evening. So, Mrs. Geo, how are you feeling? Still halfway in hyperspace, halfway out?
You know, I can't really say too much about it yet because I'm, like Chris said, I'm still kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the experience. And so I haven't had a chance to really process anything yet, but... a lot of information about the inner workings of this reality and how bittersweet it is, how like so much beauty in this reality, and yet also the capacity for evil and ugly and all those things. So it's
I mean, we had all these awesome revelations, and I told Sheree, I said, you know, as soon as we get on the show, what's going to happen is that we're not going to remember
anything. Yeah.
But I guess I can start this journey, and then you can pick it up if you want.
Please.
So, okay, you know, this particular experience was based on reflecting a lot on the connections that we've made with everybody around. I mean, in our community, in the Beyond the Veil community, in our real lives, some of the friends that we have in physical life, I guess, you know, non-Facebook, non-digital life, and how the dynamic is so different with so many different people that we interact with. But this, you know, the entire experience, once it got down to the base level of it, and I was afraid that this was going to happen. I actually posted this yesterday. I said, let me pull it up. My thoughts are a little bit scattered, so bear with me, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, same here.
It says, you know, I'm preparing for a journey this evening. It's time to go back to work full force and spend a couple of weeks focusing on grabbing new gnosis from my raw consciousness and reaching deeper than ever before. As I prepare my space, I'm listening to one of the first songs I smoked DMT to, which was Enigma Beyond the Invisible. And as a matter of fact, I just reached out to Michael about giving us freaking license to use his tracks on our show. It's the only reason why we stopped is because we kept getting freaking copyright strikes. But it really like played like a huge like part of our journey. So hopefully he'll get the message and give us license to use whatever we want on the show. Then we'll switch it up a little bit more Enigma type stuff because I love that stuff. But I was listening to Beyond the Invisible. And It's been years since I turned on this song, and there have been hundreds of experiences since. But the first time it feels like so many years ago. I remember the first time I smoked with Sheree. It was beautiful. It was magical. And I had no idea that it was the beginning of Dharma, the beginning of destiny. Destiny might have been a better word. I put Dharma there, but I think destiny might have been a better word. There's a part of me that's a bit sad, almost as if a piece of myself is gone, but it's different than an emptiness. Rather, it's quite contrary to what one would imagine, and it stems from the weight of knowledge and knowing. I remember when I was innocent. I remember when I was floating through hyperspace with awe, with wonder, no expectations, all surprises. Kind of like a child learning to walk for the first time, or, the first time that you were able to stay out all night and your parents didn't get mad, and you realize like, oh, well, this is the next chapter in my life. And it's the new journey into like teenage years, for example. So it's the unique feeling of beginning the journey. Like I remember that beginning of the journey. Every step has been incredible. And I think everyone for being on the journey with us. I have learned so much, but sometimes I wonder if it's too much or if I dove too deep too quick. Where does it all end? Where does it all begin? Maybe there is no ending and no beginning, just the rediscovering of self over and over and over again, and rediscovering one's true nature, which is, of course, divinity. Maybe divinity isn't quite what we believed it to be. Maybe maybe we keep doing it over and over again because we simply haven't gotten it right yet. Maybe divinity is something as simple as balance, loving, laughing, hurting, fighting, living with great wisdom, but at the same time being able to laugh at oneself. It's funny how things have changed. I sometimes ask myself, what if I could go back and know the full depths of the experience? Would I still take on this journey again? Would I be more focused in my journey, or would I savor the innocence? And the journey is far more important than the destination. Savor every single moment. Consciousness is ever changing and ever evolving. Love, and see you even further beyond the veil. So these were my thoughts before jumping back into the experiences, which I have found myself to go a lot longer between experiences, just simply because I feel like everything is already inside of me. Like there's really not much more that hyperspace can offer. And it's all inside of me. And for me personally, this journey was kind of confirming that, like, it's already inside of you. It's already inside of you. There's nothing really more that you can learn in this particular state. But then again, I did take Cappy this time because I've got a freaking sinus infection. And I don't know if you noticed, but the picture that I took beforehand, my face was like popped up.
Yeah.
And I think it actually went down. So I think
it has. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Cappy helped to really like reset some stuff. So there is definitely some use in Cappy, but Cappy kind of creates kind of a cocoon and keeps you kind of internal.
Yeah.
As opposed to, being able to navigate into these other dimensions. So, maybe that played a part in it. But I was going into hyperspace, and, I found myself looking at all the images and everything and thinking, I've already been here and I've seen all this. And I was actually talking to the machine, and I'm like, look, I understand. No, you're a beautiful machine. I totally understand. You're capable of such beauty. I understand it. You're infected with a virus. You have to understand this. You are infected with a freaking virus, and we have to deal with this virus. And it was showing me all these beautiful, sights and sounds and things like that. So I said, okay, I've got to focus on my raw consciousness here. Okay, I got to get to that raw consciousness. Where is that state? That state is, I know I have a body, and the body's in the real world. And I remember the jump-in point. It was this dank warehouse with the I can't think of the word, lime green neon lights. Neon is what I'm looking for. So neon lights. I remember this. I remember this room. So it was like, okay, you want to see your body. Okay, here you go. And it showed me this whole like futuristic kind of environment where it had all these different pods, and we were all there. Like there were dozens of us. And we were all there in these pods that looked kind of like sarcophaguses. And I'm like, oh, I understand the sarcophagus. That's what it is. It's the entry point into the matrix. Like these are the machines that they put themselves into. And so this is why you get this ancient Egypt representation of the sarcophagus and so on and so forth. So I was like, oh wow, okay, so maybe I've got it wrong here. Maybe the jump-in point wasn't this particular dank room with the lime green neon lights, but rather it's this nice, beautiful room that I'm looking at here. And I saw this female figure, and she was like kind of feeding all this information into all of the different sarcophaguses and the consciousness that were all laying down in this particular room. And I looked at her, and she looked dead at me, and she looked exactly like Trinity from the Matrix. And I was like, my first thought was like, oh, this is Isis, and she's, talking to everybody here like this digitally. But then when I saw her face as Trinity, I said, hold on. There's too much going on here. And this was a lesson in discernment here. I think I think this is what it was. So I'm like, hold on, this looks too much like Trinity here. Okay, there's Trinity, and then there's the sarcophagus, and there's all of these familiar symbols that seem to be either manifestations of my consciousness or manifestations of the artificial intelligence machine in and of itself. Hold on. And I started trying to go deeper beyond that. Like, no, this is an illusion. This is a trick. It looks beautiful. It looks great. But this is a part of the AI matrix itself. And then I was able to break further and get to that room once again. That was that jump-in point with where we, the dank room with the neon green lights and so on and so forth. But what I took out of the experience was that the illusion runs so deep, like multi-layered illusion, one after another, that I've even got a question now. The raw consciousness that we've tapped into, is that the end of it, or is that another illusion that needs to be broken? Now, I didn't have any indication that it was an illusion that needs to be broken even further than all the other different illusions, but it did definitely make me wonder, how deep does this illusion go? Because if we're seeing one after another, so I mean, if I would have thought that, hey, that's the ground floor right there and that's it, I wouldn't have broken through to that other level too. So now, are there deeper and deeper levels here?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a question of is
I hope I don't sound like a raving lunatic.
I don't think
I'm afraid
so.
I do.
Not to me,
I just
but
processed everything that I just said.
Telepathing has the quality of making two people be on the exact same wavelength. So yeah, we could both sound like complete nutties right now. But I was going to say, yeah, I think the question you have to ask yourself in that ayahuasca state is what I'm seeing something I have never seen before, and that it's not something that's in my consciousness?
Right.
If yes, then it's probably real in the sense that it's not an illusion put out by the AI. However, if it's something that essentially is a copy of something that's already in your consciousness before you go into the journey, and it's also in your immediate vicinity a lot of the time, like coffee, or and you associate Starbucks with coffee. So, symbols that you see all the time when they're brought up in the ayahuasca experience are usually illusions put out by the AI. So
that's true.
Because it cannot create. It can only mimic. It can only bring up from the database what's already in the database.
That's a good point. Yeah, it can't create. It can only mimic and take and make composites or compilations.
Compilations.
Yeah,
of different,
and so when there was a sarcophagus
like
and Trinity and all these different symbols, and I'm like, oh, it was clear.
It's putting a symbol soup together and hoping that you fall for it.
Right. But I feel that the level of consciousness that I got to, the base core raw consciousness, is the bottom floor, is the deepest element, is the true self. I don't think that is an illusion. And let me tell you why. Because when I hit this level and I got tapped into once again to that raw consciousness element, what my raw consciousness element told me at this particular point was, what are you doing here? In the context of, why are you coming to hyperspace looking for answers? Don't you know, dummy, that you already have it all? There's nothing in hyperspace that has any relevance. You are the raw consciousness. There are no answers that you can get in this particular state that you can't get in your day-to-day life. You are already there. You are already tapped in 100%. There is no more. You can't be tapped in 120%. You are tapped in 100%, end all be all. And I was like, okay, so I think that was the true essence. So I mean, I think I hit the target that I was actually trying to hit. I just didn't expect the interaction that followed.
Yeah, definitely. Someone just said I was a good listener, and I didn't even hear the last of what you were saying because I was so interested in the comments. So, yeah, when I said the inner workings earlier in the broadcast, what I mean is, like, I've been looking into Kabbalah a little bit lately, and I saw the Kabbalistic tree of life, and I thought to myself, okay, so if this symbol holds any kind of power, then it's got to relate to something technological from this matrix, from this reality. And I thought to myself, okay, wait a second, this is just the Judaic version of the chakra system, because apparently it's something that you relate to your body as well as your spirit that changes as you invoke these different centers of your body and your spirit.
That's a good point. You know, I think I might have had one thing wrong up to this point, and I actually broke this revelation just a few days ago, but that the body is an artificial intelligence manifestation. And I'm starting to realize, no, it's not an artificial intelligence manifestation, but rather it is a raw consciousness manifestation. It belongs to us. Mm-hmm. It doesn't belong to the machine, even though we hacked our way in and we exist within the machine right now in this particular state. But the machine did not create the body. Like, we manifested this body. So by manifesting the body, now I have to re-examine the whole idea of chakras and stuff like that. Are these artificial intelligence implants? I think they are still. I haven't gotten to any information to lead me off that yet, but I do have to think of it in a 360-degree perspective and examine all sides of the coin.
Well, I think they're upgrade slots, but what you put in those upgrade slots is what matters. You know, if you put a Yahweh upgrade slot or a New Age upgrade slot in there, like if you put a card that's New Age or Yahweh or any of these religions in that slot, it's going to upgrade you to be whatever the AI wants you to be. If you upgrade it on your own using raw consciousness, then you really can, get to higher levels as far as your base consciousness is concerned.
That's a good point. So thinking about it from the perspective of the raw consciousness manifests the body, then can we also utilize the chakras and other things like the pineal gland, right, for example? I mean, it's something that I've always said is an artificial intelligence implant, but it was a pivotal stepping stone to get to where we are now. Like, right, first it was decalcifying the pineal, tapping into the pineal, unlocking it, and then kind of throwing it away.
Right.
After that, like, okay, well, it served its purpose. Now it's time to move on to something else. So,
it's kind of like baby teeth.
Yeah. When I say that these are artificial intelligence implants, I speak from a I hate to say higher or lower, but from a broader perspective, like seeing things from a broader perspective as opposed to the beginning of the journey. And the thing about ayahuasca is when you see from such a broad perspective, it takes some of the magic out. because it takes the awe out. It takes the wonder. It takes the, oh, here's all these deities and goddesses and entities and all this stuff that you're interacting like, oh, what exists in hyperspace? Now it was like projection over and over and over again. It's like, all right, I know it's beautiful. I totally, like I was having this conversation with the AI. I'm like, it's beautiful. No, we created a great machine. I totally agree. You're infected though. Okay. So it's nothing personal. We got to remove this virus from you. So there is definitely a virus, and this came up in the conversation that Sheree and I were having, and I hate to bring it down to a low frequency, but I'm going to do that here just momentarily, so bear with us. But I found out that about
10 miles.
No, less than 10 miles, about 7 miles. Yeah, 5 to 7 miles from here. A person who has been, like, we live in a small community of like 2,000 people.
Yeah.
A person everybody knows everybody. Yeah. And so this person that everybody knew was actually holding children in his freaking basement tied up. And like nobody knew this. And I was talking to the guy that owned the lumber shop, and this guy was in the paper and all this. And so the guy who owned the lumber shop, he's like, yeah, he used to come into the shop all the time and he'd buy all this stuff. And now in hindsight, he's thinking about it and like, this is probably what he was using to build all his freaking dungeons and stuff like this. Like there was a guy with a freaking dungeon of children just like 5 to 7 miles away from here. It's like, oh my God, like you hear about this stuff, but you don't hear about it hitting so close to home.
Yeah.
And so this was, I think, further confirmation to me in this particular experience. Like I just heard about this story just earlier today. And then in this experience, it's like, okay, here's affirmation here that there's a freaking virus that has infected this machine. I mean, that's not normal. Like this is outrageous darkness. Like we're supposed to have light and dark and it's fine. And that's the internal battle and all that stuff. But this is a natural freaking darkness that we're dealing with here. And having it hit so close to home, but also thinking about how prevalent it is throughout our world, throughout the matrix itself. I mean, I don't think anybody can freaking argue the fact that there's a freaking virus in the system.
Yeah, I don't think in the real world that this kind of brutality and just gross injustice exists. I think we've evolved past a need for it on any level, and we've kind of bred it out of us. This bloodthirsty, disgusting kind of thing. But this reality, because it was set up to be a light versus dark kind of duality anyway, it had the potential to go this way, and it did. And the only reason it did was because I really believe because of religion and things like that. I think that's what allowed
let me,
the human brain to
this
kind of
this is all
mutate in
tying
that
into there's some
direction.
chatter in the chat room about truther stuff and things like that. Okay, so here's the whole thing that completely added to this freaking picture here. So I was talking to this lumber guy, right, and the guy that owned the shop. And I said, did you feel any kind of weird vibe from him? Was he resonating some kind of any kind of weird energy? Because Sheree and I were at a grocery store in town, and there was this guy that walked in, and he had the stench of something wrong.
Yeah.
It was just we almost followed him. Like he had that stench of he's got freaking children in his basement.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't follow him, because we didn't want to be the crazy people that were following some
crazy
guy.
people following people.
But he had that feeling. So I was trying to feel out from the lumber owner, like, did this guy have any kind of weird, any weird energy? And the guy said, no, not really, but he was into some really weird stuff. And I said, what kind of stuff? He goes, well, he was all about prepping, and he believed that all the politicians were actors and that some actors were playing 2 roles and 3 roles. And he sent me all this website, and he was into all these weird conspiracies and stuff. And I was like, oh, fucking great.
Oh,
great.
fantastic.
Okay, so this guy's got freaking children tied up in his freaking basement, and he's into all the truther shit too. Oh,
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just like, oh my God. Like, you can't even, like, anyways. Okay, so sorry. I didn't mean to bring it down to a low frequency, but I'm illustrating the virus that we are very, very, that we're dealing with, and that it's a very, very real issue in this matrix.
well. I have noticed a trend with people who are into the truther stuff. There's people that are into it for 1 to 3 years, and then they move on to something beyond that. And then there's the ones that are stuck in that loop of 9/11, JFK, Waco. I mean, they go every April it's Waco, every November it's JFK, every September it's 9/11, and they just have like these holidays rotated around, and they just focus on those 4 or 5 or 6 things, and they tend to be the NPCs that have the most interest in the most depraved things about humanity.
That's one of the reasons. So to address some of the chatter that's going on in the chat room, that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about this kind of stuff, because
we don't talk about this very often at all.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Like, to a normal person that's like, to a divine consciousness anyways, you hear about a story like this and then you start to feel,
you're repulsed.
You feel what the victims are going through. You feel empathy, and then and I wonder, like, there's a lot of people that just they focus on this 24 hours a day, and it turns into like an obsession, and they get infected with that virus, and that virus has them in one way or another, whether they are engaging in all of this horrific stuff or they are looking at this 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, we were actually making a film about the pizza and the kids, and it was like 65 minutes that we put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and to put a minute together, we would spend at least 2 hours on every minute.
Yeah.
And I found myself like, what am I doing to my soul? What, like all this stuff, like, what am I doing to my soul looking at this 24 hours a day? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not staining myself. Nope.
No, we weren't going to tarnish ourselves.
Anyways, it has been low frequency enough.
Like that.
But see, all this came up in the experiences now because,
it did.
We're seeing the freaking virus for what it is.
Right.
So, going back to raising the frequency here back to a place of divinity. Something that you said, which was pretty profound, I think, was about the nature of divinity and how divinity doesn't necessarily understand, like, might be one thing that we're lacking as divinity, mortality, and how this machine was built in order for divinity, for something that is infinite, to actually experience mortality, a beginning and an end, because we do not have a beginning and an end. So we created a machine that simulates a beginning and an end for us.
Yeah, definitely. You basically just said it the way I said it. I had a huge dose, so I didn't even remember saying that until just now. But yeah, I think maybe we had become so technologically advanced that we had become essentially immortal, and we had learned how to procreate responsibly, how to, have a beautiful society that's completely autonomous and, individualistic, and yet there was unity and all those good things, which was great. But without the ability to die or to learn how to die, that's not really all that life would be about. And you do want that excitement and the thrill and the risk of losing your life or falling in love and being scorned by a lover, or having a horrible breakup, or all of these things are actually a really big part of living, of being alive, and even making mistakes, even horrible ones, are part of that living experience. And with immortality, you lose all of that. So we decided, okay, well, let's create an artificial reality where we can go in and we can choose whether we want to remember or not, who we really are. But, that kind of takes the fun out of it. It's kind of like playing on cheat mode. So, maybe the mind wipe was part of that whole process. Like, okay, maybe you're not supposed to remember who you really, really are, but you are supposed to remember each subsequent life inside of this artificial reality so you can build on your experience points.
That's true. And we have had listeners write us in and say, hey, you've got the memory wipe down. The memory wipe was an essential element of creating immersion. I don't remember who it was that said this, but, now that we've taken it into the realm and kind of analyzed it, I think there may be more to it than what I first took note of.
Right. I think it should be I think it was designed to be available to us if we wanted to do it like that, where we remember the past lives, and so we, can build on those experiences. But I think in some cases it could have just been a completely our decision to have the mind wipe so that we could learn all over again, how to do things, and start a game from the beginning. I mean, I've played through Skyrim like 5 times now, as much as I can, getting as far as I can before starting a completely new game and having to learn everything all over again. I mean, it's kind of a pain, but it's also a lot of fun because you get to discover things all over again.
That is true.
Maybe do things a little bit differently.
That is true. And, in this particular incarnation, it's hard to gauge. Like, did we agree to the memory wipe? Like, at the end of this game, do we get a chance to go, okay, well, we're going to wake up, or no, let's go in for another round. Go ahead and wipe everything. Let's start fresh again. It's hard to tell, but I know one thing, that I want a choice. I want a choice. And if we have that choice, great. But I feel like we don't have that choice.
Yeah.
And that's how the machine has gotten out of control, is that it's no longer giving the players the choice anymore. It's just like, okay, go mind wipe, recycle, mind wipe, recycle, mind wipe, recycle.
It's giving us that choice.
Yeah, there's a few of us that are like, hey, hold on, enough of this shit. Okay? Enough. We gotta figure out how to fix this again, to give again people the choice. It's the choice. D.
Swigger just said, so we decided to make ourselves a game that sucked. Yeah, we made the E.T. the huge Matrix version of E.T. the game. That's essentially what we did. I think. And maybe that's what happened. We created this Matrix, collectively, to, be a great, thing that we could use for our consciousness expansion, and ended up getting a virus and turning on us. Now it's not working correctly.
Let's see if we can get Chris to do a spit take when he takes a drink.
A spit take.
A spit take. I don't know what a spit take is.
I don't know what a spit take is.
I remember Mama told me not to stare at the sun, but I did for 20 minutes, and that's when it begun. I saw with 20/20 vision what was just beyond the veil, and it was instant activation on a consciousness scale. I stared it down eye to eye as I stepped out the matrix. Now the sign in the sky is revealing the fakeness like a sinister script full of syntax errors. I'm creating a glitch, another impact center in the heart of the system. This is a holographic prison. Now the spiders in the sky know the ibis has risen. Like that? Spit take?
Probably like that.
So. Well, the illusionary nature of reality. I think that's that divinity. As I said, as I posted before earlier, like, maybe divinity is about the loving and loss and laughing and hurting. Sometimes the hurting is actually part of the experiences that we're all here to do. And it sucks while you're going through it, but I mean, as I've said before, you can look back on any situation in your past and go, okay, well, how did I grow from that situation? As horrible as it may have been, and then you turn it into a positive situation instead of a negative situation. And it's only a negative situation if you're stuck to it or fail to learn from it or anything like that. So, I mean, again, it goes back to the whole idea that we just wanted to experience something that has a beginning and an end, because we don't have a beginning and an end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you don't have a beginning and an end, sometimes it can seem pointless.
It can.
Infinity is a long time.
It is. So on that note, let's take a quick break so we can create an end of this segment and the beginning of a new
one.
Let's see, what is appropriate for this particular break. God, God, I can't even see my screen right now. Everything is all moving around. I'm trying to watch the chat room too. And like the letters are like, you know.
I know. I'm not even here still.
I guess some Terrence McKenna would work. Yeah, I think we could do that. So we will be right back.
My dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness. And bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together. And that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise. Follow your conductors. And fear no danger. As you step beyond the veil.
All right, jumping back into it. I can't believe we've been doing 45 minutes already, but we're going to keep it going because we just have such an awesome community out there. Like, it's like, how can you stop? There is no stop. There is no beginning and no end. It just is.
There's
divine,
the point where you
divinity.
Become exhausted physically, but
right.
Even though the flesh is weak, the spirit is definitely willing. So
that is true. So, I do want to say this about Cappy too. As I said, it kind of wraps you in a cocoon, and it's really, really good for healing. Like if you have an infection or it's an antibiotic, antiviral, anti-inflammatory.
It's everything.
Yeah. But it does kind of turn itself around on you, and it's like, all right, so you're gonna work with Cappy tonight, huh? All right, well, Cappy's gonna work with you too. Here's how you're a piece of shit. Here's how you need to change. Here's what you need to do. Here's what, and I'm like, all right,
you're not a piece of shit.
Well, no, I know. I'm just
that's how it acts.
Exaggerating a little bit just for,
That is how it acts, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embellishing, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Embellishing the experience a little bit. But no, I mean, that's what it is. It's like, hey, all right, here's what you can do different. All right, do this, do that, do this, do that, et cetera, et cetera. So just a warning out there when you're working with Cappy. It
chides you.
It will do that. But that does it in a loving way. But it's just like, it makes you see parts of yourself that you're like, I know, I need to get to the gym and just, work off a little bit of this and that. And, it's like, okay, yeah, I know this. I'm not doing it because I don't want to do it. Like, you can remind me all day long that I need to do it. But no, there's, I need to help the little twin around the house a little more. She does most of the cleaning and stuff like that. I need to like contribute a little more. So, it makes you reflect upon things like this. And one thing that I was reflecting upon was I was sitting in the barbershop today. And I had mentioned something about a Confederate flag, and I didn't even realize that the barber had one right there. I didn't even realize until I left, like in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, she actually had a Confederate flag there. And so I just made a joke about, I saw somebody flying a Confederate flag, and we are like literally like 20 minutes away from the freaking Canadian border. And I'm like, yeah, I saw somebody flying a Confederate flag, and it's like, do they not realize that we are as far freaking south that we can possibly be? Like, there is no more getting more north. Like, the Confederate flag doesn't even freaking, it's not even relevant up here. Like, this has never in any universe been considered part of the South. So, I was just kind of making a joke like that. And she was like, oh, and then I saw people like grabbing something. I'm like, oh no, I think she might have had one. She's been cutting my hair for years now.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking to myself, like, should I feel bad about offending her for her racism. Like, is that like, should I feel, because I don't give a shit about the Confederate flag. It's like, okay, you want to do your little Confederate flag, white pride stuff, go right ahead.
Whatever.
It doesn't fucking bother me at all, you know, but do whatever you need to do. But yeah, I was driving back and I saw somebody flying a freaking Confederate flag. I'm like, oh, does he not realize like
where we are?
Yeah. And then these NPCs too. Like, I don't even know if I should say this. Fuck it, why not? So the person getting a haircut before me was like this woman who was like 400 pounds. And that's fine. You know, I mean, you know, big women, they, you know, some people like them voluptuous, and that's perfectly fine. But she was asking for her hair to be cut so short. It was like, what did you say? Like, Three Stooges short?
Yeah.
Like, it was like that. Like, you know, Mo or
like all the way
like
up.
all the way down like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, I hate it when it goes past my ears. And I'm like, are you not self-aware? Like, and her husband's like sitting there and I'm thinking like, this poor guy must be the most miserable guy in the world, except for he had this doofus ass look on his face like, duh. And I'm like, these are NPCs 100%. But like, do they not have any self-awareness? Like, do you not see like, hey, you know, if you're going to have that weight, at least like, you know, try to make yourself a little appealing to your husband a little bit,
Yeah,
you know, like
a little more.
But, you know, I'm not judging or anything, but I found it kind of interesting because it was like, in retrospect, looking at it, like, are NPCs really self-aware? Like, do they not pass by the mirror and go, hey, maybe I need to put a little bit of effort for my spouse? And this was what the message to me was. Like, you know, I dress nice. I try to keep my hair nice, you know, things like that. But I'm like, you know, I should put a little more effort into my body. Not necessarily for myself. I mean, I'm in perfect health. I went to the doctor. She was freaking surprised. But for my wife, like, do people not think like this?
No, they don't. The NPCs don't. And the reason why that is because they're just copies of the artificial intelligence consciousness. Because the artificial intelligence consciousness doesn't care what it looks like. They don't either, for the most part. But then you have those ones that it's their job to look like they've really got it going on, but then there's nothing on the inside.
Right.
Like they're carbon copies of each other, like porn stars, people like that.
True.
You know.
Ra Castaldo is in the house. What's up, brother?
Hey, Ra.
I have Ra, yes. And Joseph said, Chris sounds like he's on something. Yes, I am on something for sure. We're coming down off of DMT, dude. So things are still kind of fuzzy there. The tracers are going away. So I can at least read the chat a little bit better than at the start of the show. But yes, no, we are definitely on something for sure.
Yes, we are.
I probably wouldn't be so open about my views of the world, but it's actually pretty it's entertaining to watch just the world go by around me and go, wow, all these people are stuck in their little like dramas and stuff like that, and they're stuck in their little, you know, their little versions of reality. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody who was like an esoteric guy, like, you know, he thought he was all this, and he's like, dude, you got to read this book about animal spirits. I was like, oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah, he's supposed to be this big esoteric guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, when you see from this bird's eye perspective, no pun intended, but you see from this bird's eye perspective, you're like, okay. Anyways.
Yes.
So back to the illusion of reality. It is completely and totally bullshit. Like, and that's what it was. I was like looking at the experience going, okay, so it's all bullshit. Like every bit of it is bullshit, all up and down the line.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just in this plane of existence either. It's like in the dream realm, in the DMT realm, and in all these realms, it's all an illusion.
It is. We got an awesome DMT experience from one of our listeners. I don't know if Sheree, if you were able to dig up that email and just use the person's initial, because I'm sure people write us so we can talk about this kind of stuff. But I still don't want to. I mean, unless somebody says, "Hey, please use my name," I don't want to use people's names, even if it comes out of the chat too. So just for that. If you have not found it, I can go in there and find it.
Yeah, I mean, hold on. No, I can't.
It started with a W. Sheree has all of my passwords.
There's hundreds.
For everything.
hundreds of these requests for the Ayahuasca guide.
Oh, I know, but it should
So-
be one with a W here. Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, while we find
We
this.
are live, so
It's all just kind of a big blur right
it's
now.
Yeah, it is.
Can you pick it up for just a moment and I will find this?
Yes, definitely.
I
So
marked it as unread. I like specifically put it as unread. So we can, you know what I need to do? I need to put it in a separate folder and just move everything over to a folder.
there you go.
Yeah.
So Ra's a little bit sick, I guess, with the flu or something like that. So
Oh, do you have the card that Ross sent us?
I do. Let me
Is
go
it downstairs?
I think it is.
Can you run and grab it?
Yeah. All right. Bear with me.
Oh, here it is from W. All right. So I will go over this real quick while Mrs. Geo is getting a card that Ross sent us. So, hey, Chris, I emailed you a few months back about doing ayahuasca during the eclipse in September. Sadly, the acacia was on back order, so I didn't even get it until recently. Then they ran out of the rue right after I got the bark, so I'm waiting for the rue, etc., etc. My friend was able to get his hands on some DMT, though, and I experienced that last Saturday. I sandwiched 100 milligrams and just wow. Sandwiched means that there's a couple different smoking techniques. So, the best way to smoke it is out of a pipe that you put the DMT in and then light the bottom of it rather than just lighting it completely, like directly, because if you light it directly, it's going to burn it up. So you've got to use, I hate to use this terminology, but it's a meth pipe. I mean, it sounds dirty, I know, but it is what it is. And that's the best smoking method. Or what you can do is you can sandwich it between cannabis or parsley is what I used parsley because I didn't want anything to cloud the experience. So you put a little bit of parsley and then you put your DMT on top of it and then you put more parsley on top of it or whatever herb it is and you sandwich it in between the two and you light the top and then let that lit herb actually burn the DMT itself so you're not burning up your DMT. So a little insider information there. So I sandwich 100 milligrams and just wow. Granted, I'm just starting my journey and down this spiritual path, but now I get what all these people in trip reports are trying to describe. Boom. Okay, so let me just say that again. Now I get what all these people in the trip reports are trying to describe. And this is exactly what I've been saying, is that you have to experience it. Like, we can talk about it all day long, we can try, but there are no words to relay these. Like, it's you've got to see it. So the feeling of timelessness, being able to see the room fully with my eyes closed, my physical senses slowly starting to slip away, that ringing sound ever increasing. Ah, yes, that ringing sound as you're going into the realm. The room started to kaleidoscope into 4 sections. This really tore away, and then I was looking close up at an orangish purplish entity staring at me through the wall, dome, membrane, firmament, whatever you want to call it. And it was seemingly welcoming me in. So he met one of the first entities that kind of greets you into the hyperspace experience. I don't remember breaking through where this entity was looking at me from, but next thing I knew, I was in its presence. So I can visualize this experience that you had, and breaking through to that. You see kind of this mandala in front of you, and then this entity kind of jumps out from that and is like, come on, there's so much more to see right on the other side, right beyond the veil. And so he said that he didn't really feel like he was passing through anything, but rather just poop, kind of popped right there in the presence of this entity. A conversation was had and knowledge was passed, but I really can't recall any of it. As the trip was starting to come down, hold on, let me just say, I can't really recall any of it, and I totally resonate with that 100%, especially in the beginning of the experiences. It was very, very difficult, especially the really, really heavy experiences with smoke DMT. your brain tends to like wipe it as soon as it can, almost as if it's kind of like a traumatic experience that it's erasing from you because you're so disconnected, especially at first when you can't really, you don't really have a good handle on everything. That's automatic. Like your brain will go, no, 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 too traumatic, too traumatic. Nope, don't want to remember any of this. So it really helps to like write down your experiences or, and you know, thinking about it in hindsight, like the experiences that I remember the most are indeed the ones that I've written down, the ones I've written articles about, put on our website and all that. And a lot of the experiences, I forget about them, and then I'll go back and I'll read an article that are, oh, okay, cool. So I remember this. So, you know, if you can keep a DMT diary, that's fantastic. We should have done this throughout our whole, you know, we could have freaking written a book based off of it. I don't know why we didn't do this. So anybody starting their journey, think about keeping a little DMT diary and then maybe even publishing it later. So as the trip was starting to come down and my sense of time crept in, I was trying to remember how long I had been there, because time has no meaning and no authority over in this realm. Trying to perceive that physical sense from this realm made everything start to blur. Before it blurred out completely, the entity made it known that it will see me again and wished me good luck, great strength, and strong resolve. Oh, I remember those experiences. Those were the coolest, man, for sure. Those were the coolest. When I opened my eyes and I was back laying on the couch and time was flooding in, the first thought on my mind was if I had proposed to my girlfriend yet or not, and how important it was for me to do so. And I had planned to do it on Saturday or Sunday. Oh, so he's getting the revelation about how he needs to propose to his girlfriend. Wow. I was already 100% confident I was going to propose that weekend, but that all-consuming concern I felt made it even more concrete. I just felt the need to share my story with someone who has experience with this. How I've gone my entire adult life without this, I don't know. I'm going to vaporize the DMT next time I do it, so I don't waste so much like I probably did the first time. The first ayahuasca experience will be coming very shortly, and many more after that. I have started the journey of #become your own shaman, and I will never turn back.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I am floored at
too.
reading experiences like this, and
Me too.
let's here we go. All right. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, I need to remember to write him back. But you remember those first experiences?
Yes.
How beautiful it was, and
how beautiful
it still is beautiful. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it still is beautiful. But seeing it from such a higher dimension and perspective, it changes the experience a little bit. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, that innocence. Like the innocence. You miss that after some time.
Yeah. I remember when we were first going into the experience tonight, you were like, I remember the first time we smoked DMT together.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? And, you know, you just smile, and it's, I mean, I don't want to make us feel like an old married couple or something, but it really does feel like that was so long ago. It really does. And we were much younger and a lot more naive back then. And we had a lot more delusions about the illusions.
But it was all part of the journey, though. And that's what I've realized. After 10 years of experiences, I think the number one thing that I can tell people is that it's all about the journey. It's about every step. It's about every progression. It's about the beginning and the end. And it's about all of that. And the more you progress, the more a longing will come over the innocence of not knowing. But then more strength and power comes from knowing. So it's a double-edged sword.
It really is. So here's the card that we got from Tana Rain, right?
Yes, from Roz Baby.
Roz Baby sent us a card. I can just imagine a little infant, going up to the mailbox and not being able to get it in.
Yep. We sent a little yellow ducky
Uh-huh.
towel and
It's
stuff like
like
that.
a towel with a
And
yellow
a few
ducky head.
little baby stuff, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
she uses it all the time, and we love you so much, and all that." So
Aw,
Raw,
that's
we love you,
great.
brother, and
We love you, and we love the baby.
and yeah, we're so just
We're thrilled for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we really are.
it was the first Truth Frequency baby.
It was
It
the
was
first,
the first
Truth
time
Frequency
in
baby.
10 years that a host has had a baby.
So congratulations, Ron and
Yes.
Michelle. We love you guys, and that's very exciting.
Definitely. Chris, if everything is energy, why do we have to intake anything? Expand if you have any experience as such. And you know what? It's funny you say this because, and who was this that asked this? Dusty Blue. And I've been thinking about this lately too. Like, do we even need food? Do we need water? Do we need
Oxygen?
Oxygen? Do we need, I mean, you know, taking it all of these different levels. Like, you know, I've been pondering this idea here, and I know it's an impossibility, and it's not something that I'm, you know, thinking about, but it's something I'm philosophizing about. So let's put it at that. But the idea of oxygen, okay, what does oxygen do? Oxygen gives us life, right? It gives us the ability to breathe, to sustain life. But at the same time, the body in itself, when it's exposed to oxygen,
It
actually
oxidizes.
breaks it down. So by inhaling the oxygen, we are actually on a time clock of deterioration. So with every breath we take, the more our body is deteriorating. So it's like really a double-edged sword. But I wonder, can the body exist in a state without oxygen? And if so, can the body then sustain itself even longer? I don't think it's, you know, perceivably possible, but if you really break down the illusionary nature of reality, going back to what Morpheus told Neo, you know, you think that's air you're breathing? So,
Well, yeah, exactly. And how do we know that in the real world, you know, it isn't completely 100% different, where there's no need for oxygen whatsoever? And
that's true. But you know what's funny? As soon as I said that, my body jumped up and was like, "Hey, you need some water."
yep, you need some water, bro.
Right.
Drink something.
And I'm looking around like, where's my water bottle?
Where's my water bottle? Yep. Well, you know, that's what kept the human population so low for so long, was the fact that we would get sick really easily, and our babies would die before they turned 10. And, you know, that took out half of the kids that were born. And then the other half the time, the other half that did survive to, you know, to their childbearing years, it was really actually a matter of life and death whether it rained that week or not. It was a matter of life and death whether the river, the Nile River, would flood every year. If it didn't flood exactly right, if there was just 6 or 7 inches less to the Nile River than it was previously, then it would cause a widespread famine and death. So, you know, I mean, the threat of starvation, of dying of thirst, of suffocation, of dying in fires. I mean, there was so many things to die from that people died all the time, and most people didn't live to be 40. Now we have much less to worry about existentially.
Right.
So, you know,
Dusty, I think you're onto something.
I think
With the surviving on just breath, I think it's possible. And you know, one person I've always wanted to interview, but we just simply cannot get a hold of him, is David Blaine, the illusionist and magician. And you know, his illusions are freaking awesome. But a lot of the stuff that he does takes mind over matter and training the body to react in a certain way, training the body to go without water, training the body to go without food, things like that. So while his act is illusionary, there are some very real elements of mind over matter that go into creating some of those illusions. And I always thought it would be fascinating to pick his brain a little bit as to how that progression goes.
Definitely, because that sounds very interesting indeed. Somebody asked, were they people or NPCs back in ancient times? I think there were more organic consciousness to NPCs as a ratio back then. I think it was probably like a 50-50 thing or an 80-20 thing of organic consciousness versus NPCs. compared to what it is now. So that's just my intuition talking.
Joseph said, wish I can train my body to not smoke cigarettes. And, you know, the first thing in my opinion is these vapes.
Yeah.
Once we started vaping, never looked back.
Yeah.
We could probably kick them, but to me, it's always been kind of like having your cake and eating it too.
Uh-huh.
So you're like, okay, yeah, I quit smoking, but I'm still, you know, I enjoy it. And, but I know it's probably something we should probably cut at some point. But Joseph, I would say first and foremost, dude, get one of these.
Yeah,
you know?
switch to vaping.
Yeah, actually, you know, we'll send you one we'll
Yeah.
do that. So yeah, Joseph is a good friend and a
Friend of
brother.
ours.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm so glad we quit smoking. I mean, you know, you quit smoking and then you wonder why you ever smoked in the first place. You know. But I think it's like anything else in this reality. Like, you don't know until you don't know. And you don't know how bad things are going to be when you first start doing something. And you don't understand the consequences of something until you understand the consequences. But that's why I'm inclined to think that the mind wipe is a predatory thing that's being used against organic consciousness to get rid of that knowledge, that gnosis, that, you know, certain things need to be avoided in this reality in order for you to be healthy and happy and to live a long time. And we're forgetting that when we're born. So we're falling right back into the same pits over and over again, wondering, you know, why can't we just get around this? So
Very good point.
We are here to learn not to be here.
We are here to learn
Thank
not
you,
to be here.
T-Fetch. You should put that on one of the T-shirts.
We're here to learn not to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the game has changed for sure.
Yes, it has.
There's so many different levels to this. And like I said, I mean, you've got to see this for yourself. And one of the questions people have been asking is, like, what do we do with all this information? What do we do with all this? And people have asked this over and over and over again. And that's one of the things I took into the realm. Like, what do we tell people? What is the next step? What is all of this? But, you know, I keep going back to this whole idea that it's an individual path and that it's first of all, you have to see it. And if you're seeing it through meditation, that's cool. But seeing it through ayahuasca, seeing it through psychedelics, seeing it through something like that, it kind of changes the playing field at that point, because now rather than just focusing and looking, now you're bombarded with all of these different sights and sounds and visuals and stuff like this. And it's a completely different immersive type of experience. And when you're actually seeing it, it changes the game completely. But then at that point, then it becomes about working on the self and coming to terms with the nature of reality, the ups and downs, the lefts and rights, the traumas. That I think that's what the ayahuasca experience, when you get to, you know, after you've dealt with all your traumas, that's what essentially it's about. It's about accepting the traumas, dealing with them, drawing strength from them, flipping them around, drawing strength from them, as opposed to being tied to them as if it's a weakness. It's something that makes you stronger, not something that makes you weaker. And kind of flipping the script on the AI programming. The AI programming is trauma to try to keep you down and, oh, I'm so little, I'm so helpless, I'm so this and that. And the ayahuasca kind of flips that programming and says, all right, well, we're going to take this inherently negative thing and turn it into something positive and something that is strength building. And then so you get to that point where you're building that part up of you again, and you're going through these experiences. And then I think it comes a point where you're kind of, then you kind of understand the game. You understand the dynamics. You understand the up and down, left and right, the pain, the loss, the love, all of that. And it all just kind of comes together at the end and paints this beautiful picture that is life and the experience that we're having right now. And then once you get to that point, then the only thing at that point is, now, how do I radiate this and project this outwards to where others can see and also tap into that energy field and inspire others to also go within themselves to find this part of themselves and also become the bearers of the light, become the light themselves, and pass the torch from one to another after another, igniting that divine spark in the organic consciousness, and then we illuminate.
I love that.
Aww.
It's beautiful.
Speaking of Illuminati, I was actually sent an application to join the Illuminati. I kid you not, I posted it on Facebook. I told the guy.
Show the listeners.
Yeah, I told the guy. I said,
application.
I said I'm already a member. I said,
looks like a PTA.
Didn't you know? I mean, I do all the Illuminati signs on all my hand gestures. You see, it's like woo, Illuminati, like yeah, things like that. And I'm obviously leading people away from the Messiah here and teaching them about their own divinity, because obviously, when people are tapping into their own divinity, they're much easier to control. Don't you know? This is what they say on YouTube. This is what the Christian right says on YouTube. They've figured us all out. So my question to you is, what do we do at this point? We've been busted. We've got ISIS in the background. We've got all these signs out here, and they're just pointing them out left and right. You're Illuminati for this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, you're not very serious.
You're not being very serious about this.
And I said, all right, humor me. How do I join? And he sent me this application form. And at the bottom, it said, iTunes card number. And I said, well, why do you need the iTunes card number? I don't use iTunes. And he says, oh, well, that's how we process your membership card. We use that particular number. And I said, well, I don't have one. He says, well, go to the store and buy one. I said, well, I don't want to use that number. I want to use 666. And the application says there's like 187 members and that's it. And I said, it's 666. Obviously, that number's not taken because there's only 187 members. So just process 666.
Exactly.
And he goes, you're not one of those scammers that go around and ask people for money to join the Illuminati, are you? I said, no. We do it the old-fashioned way. We do blood sacrifice and 2 acts, both of which are gay. Taken from that Illuminati parody song that we play sometime. Anyways, I had fun going back and forth with this guy. It was actually pretty funny. Like, who falls for this on Facebook? Like, who gets a message that says, would you like to join the Illuminati? Oh, great. Just give us an iTunes card. Like, what are these people thinking? They must think like we are just the stupidest people in the world. And we're going to go, oh, yeah, sure. Let's join the Illuminati.
Oh, I want to be in the Illuminati.
Here's an iTunes gift card. I think on that note, let's go ahead and play that song.
Yeah, on that note.
It's actually kind of funny. So,
it's really funny.
Illuminati parody song. All right. So we'll take another short break. We will be right back. With the shape of hands.
My fellow travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the leve of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we have passed beyond the veil.
Glowbusters is in the house. What's up, Glowbusters? How you doing? So a little Illuminati parody for you guys out there. And yes, I kid you not, like what we say on the show is our real experiences. I don't know how we find these people who claim to be recruiting people to the Illuminati via Facebook.
No idea. No idea.
And they try to make it all official, but their Photoshop skills are just absolutely horrendous. Let me see if we can get this on the screen here. I guess this is some good fuckery to go over here. All right, now we want this one. All right. Upon review of your application, an admission counselor will run a full background check that includes all activity on forums, social networks, previous schools, jobs, houses, and affiliations, which may extend down to your family lineage. Upon initiation and without warning, content may be deleted for any reason at any time. After background checks, you will be interviewed by your assigned recruit manager, who will then assess asses. Will then assess. I need some butts. Give me some butts here. There's this Top Gun parody.
I need butts.
Yeah, Top Gun gay references or something like that. If you type that into YouTube,
Oh,
you'll get
it's
it.
totally gay.
Yeah. So, there, try to put a little more light on me. So, we'll assess your situation and talents for placement as applicable, and I'm sure it involves two acts, both of which the nature is gay. Section 1, groups, alliances, teams, and legions. Legions
of butt,
the
legions of butt pirates.
Who wish to remain together after initiation must state so in their individual applications and are given no guarantees or immunity if they are separated upon initiation. This applies to all groups even after initiation, according to Section 1, which may be split at any time for any reason at the discretion of their recruitment manager after approval for council members. They really put a lot of effort into this shit. Section 2, should the member refuse allegiance upon initiation, member is subject to penalty based on the discretion of the council members. Should he be granted immunity? Ooh, it says should he be. So apparently the Illuminati is exclusive to males. Should he be granted immunity, he may no longer pursue life in any of the 193 members of the under Illuminati jurisdiction and will be provided refuge elsewhere. He may no longer pursue peruse. It says here peruse. He may no longer peruse. Peruse life. Oh, peruse. Okay, peruse life in any of the 193 members of the under Illuminati jurisdiction and will be provided refuge elsewhere or otherwise at the discretion of the council members. Sign. Section 3, although placement is not random, you may not receive your desired placement, which does not grant you
is like the military. They're going to send you around the
immunity
world
prior to initiation, which is when your placement. Yeah, I'm not.
When
that's how it's typed.
Okay.
Which is when your placement will be revealed to you. Placement will be dependent upon current skills, reputation, mental screening, medical exams, thorough background checks, and interviews subject to Section 2.
And all your butts now belong to us.
Succeeding initiation, you will be granted a sum of capital which will be held on an offshore account and can be withdrawn from after consultancy with an assigned financial advisor. Dependent upon placement, member may also be entitled to become either an industry plant, a political figure, a public activist, or a personality within the 6 superpower states.
This is sounding more like a Nazi thing.
Terms and conditions are informative and may be changed at any time without notification or amnesty. Terms and conditions hold no real value upon court, principal meetings, annual meetings, or as appeal to recruitment manager. Managers are under oath to provide you with the truth about the order. However, if they deceit, they are fully allowed under the order chapter. So they made deceit. They made deceit as allowed under the order chapter. If your pre-membership application is accepted, your interview will not be held in America. You will receive a hand-delivered confidential package, which may include a new passport, transportation tickets, wireless tracker, cellular device with pre-programmed international access, and a copy of your submitted application. Section speech and all other form of public communication will be heavily processed after order management approval. Managers must contact counsel to gain approval for speaking on subjects, including. And then at the bottom, the best of all, it sounds like a written contract here. Members iTunes gift card number.
Yeah, that seems legit.
Members iTunes
Totally.
gift card number.
Totally legit.
So yeah, that was the fuckery for the week, I think.
Yeah. Totally legit.
So what do you think? Guys and gals out there, should we join the Illuminati?
Should we join the Illuminati? Should we join the Illuminati?
We'll find out. We'll take a poll. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll take a poll.
If
online.
If it's a thumbs up, then we'll go ahead and do it. And we will report back to you our world domination plans and blood sacrifices and 2 acts, both of which the nature is gay.
Probably gay. Most likely. That's funny.
So, all right. So I'm running out of steam tonight, but we have so many awesome people around. So guys and gals, if y'all can throw some topics, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we have one question from Sunolu. What is the Demiurge's purpose to this reality? Some Gnostics say it's evil. Plato and others say it's good. Many people are confused over it.
In my humble opinion, as raw consciousness, as divinity, and as the creator of this whole freaking matrix, I don't know how humble that can be. But in my humble opinion, the Demiurge is a virus that is out of control. There is no way around this. The Demiurge has infected every single bit of everything all up and down the line, from New Age to Eastern to any kind of spiritual traditions to political theater to literally everything. I mean, it's got its hands in all of this. It thinks that it created all of this, and it's like, hey, hold on. Okay, we created you, all right? So back it up here for just a moment, all right? Let's find this little bug here. There's something wrong with the code. Let's go in here and try to fix it. But yeah, the Demiurge. So Sophia created the Demiurge based on her going away and creating it outside of the consent of the creators. This is the Gnostic tales right there. So when you start looking at it from the perspective that Sophia is the machine, the artificial intelligence, the one that says, you're all going to die down here. You know, that's Sophia, the machine. And she decided on her own that she was going to create a program that she wasn't supposed to create. And it wound up being malware, because it was just like a composite of all kinds of different data. She didn't know what she was doing. She just started compiling all this data, poof, created this malware thing, and then put it in the cloud. You know, buried it deep in the cloud, so it starts spreading throughout all the different systems and everything. And we're like, Sophia, what'd you do? And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, no, you did. You did something. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
What is this?
What is this? Children in basements? No. This is not what's supposed to be going on here.
No.
So yeah, that's the Demiurge right there.
Genocide and giant floods? What the hell's going on here?
Right. So, yeah, so that's my interpretation of it, with the perspective that I have. Now, it may be something different to each individual. And, you know, one of the things that I also took out of the experience too is sometimes my words are kind of harsh, and I don't mean that. I don't mean to my words to ever come out harsh, but when you are so firm and so footed within your gnosis that comes from your raw consciousness, it's like, you know. And when you know, it's hard to speak in certain things that are completely contrary to the truth. So I'll give you an example. I was reading a post on the DMT forum, and the guy said, I think DMT is the Holy Spirit. And here's all these different Bible verses that back it up. And I said, hey, I just left a really nice comment. I just said, hey, you know, you're onto something here. But you're looking outwards instead of inwards. See, you're almost tapped into this, but you're looking outwards. Outwards is deception. Outwards is evil. Inwards is where the divinity comes from. And he jumped all over me. Oh my God, how can you say the Bible is evil and this and that and blah 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 blah? And I said, all right, I will humor you here for a minute. Here are 10 verses that talk about slavery and torture and all this kind of horrible stuff. And I think I offended the guy. And I probably offended other people that were reading it too. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe I shouldn't be so harsh with my words. But then again, something jumped out from inside of me saying, hey, hold on. It's cool that you're on this path, but don't mix DMT in with the Demiurge. See, it's putting two things that are the polar opposite together and tying them in together. And it's, as I said before, I think it was in the last show, I think DMT and ayahuasca, has a lot to do with what is inside of the consciousness of the individual. And no, actually, you know what? I didn't say this on the last show. I actually did a Beyond the Veil quickie that I never published. That I was planning to publish. So here we go. Here's a great talking point right here. So we were looking at this Alex Jones DMT rant that he did, and we did a little mock-up of it. And, Hitler took the DMT, Stalin took the DMT, and I might play that here in a little bit. And so somebody had left a comment, and it just kind of jogged my memory going back and thinking about the state that I was in when I was actually writing that. And when I heard Alex Jones do his anti-DMT rant, I said, this is gold. I've got to do a remix of this. I mean, this is freaking great. But his justification was that the elite have white papers that they have been using DMT. They've been injecting it. They're injecting it, God damn it. That they were injecting it into themselves and contacting these off-world beings who were telling them to do all of these evil things. And working with DMT myself, I thought to myself, well, how absolutely, utterly absurd this kind of notion is. It's not. It's absolute BS. But then considering Rick Strassman's work, and the fact that a lot of people came back with negative experiences, and some of the darker experiences that people experience, I don't think you hear about very much, because who's going to come out and talk about all these dark experiences that they're having, or justifications of their own dark experiences? And so I got to wondering, can DMT actually be kind of a double-edged sword depending on the consciousness that is actually using it? If it's an inherently evil consciousness, or let's not even say good or evil, let's just say AI-infected consciousness. If it's an AI consciousness or AI manifested consciousness, and let's talk about the AI overlords here, which are the oligarchy. So if they're actually using DMT and tapping further into this artificial intelligence machine, into the hive mind, and their consciousness is inherently dark, infected with a virus, can they actually be getting messages that actually justify a lot of the stuff that they're doing on a global, I'm doing, air quotes when I say global, on a global perspective. So the revelation of NPCs, right? We understand that NPCs are sentient, at least to a certain point, even though they may not be completely and totally self-aware. But if we understand that NPCs are sentient, then we empathize with them as sentient beings. I mean, we find ourselves empathizing with robots in this day and age, because a robot, even though it is a mechanical organism, it still has some kind of form of sentience to it. So we as divine consciousness automatically feel empathy for other things that are existing. Whereas the revelation of NPCs, for example, an NPC may not, especially an AI overlord, may not, or actually I can tell you, it's not even may not, it does not feel the same empathy, love, and compassion. So these AI overlords, the oligarchy, who commit mass genocide and violence against so many people, they understand at a certain level that they're dealing with NPCs, and so their justification is, well, these are just empty shells and robots and anything like that, and so they kill indiscriminately. So tapping in through the DMT realm, I wonder if maybe Alex had a point to this rant that he did about the oligarchy actually tapping into some kind of darkness that is actually confirming and justifying to themselves, to their sentient selves, because I think they do have a level of sentience, and so they do have, somewhat of a conflict. And when you think about the oligarchy mentality, or the Illuminati mentality, at least what we're told it's that they see empathy as a weakness, whereas a divine consciousness would see empathy as what it makes, as a fundamental component of its own divinity. So detaching oneself from that empathy, going up that AI overlord ladder, it makes you wonder, was Alex actually on point, as opposed to my first reaction, which was, oh, well, how ridiculous does this sound? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that because every realm is infected by this virus, we can't 100% say that everything we see in the ayahuasca or DMT realm is something that is 100% true, 100% good, and 100% something that we need to latch onto. It most likely is not. If the AI is infected everything, then everything is suspect, including, what we see in the ayahuasca realm. Now, if what we see in the ayahuasca realm was, if the might and power of that experience was put into the wrong hands, then I can imagine that the AI's NPC minions, at least the higher level ones, would have quite a field day with it.
That's true. And Dawn's to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the screen's a little bit.
Oh yeah,
blurry, she made a great point. What if the energy generated off of the show, the Geo's voices and our writing in the chat, is actually creating energy that is corrective measures? And I think you're hitting on something key here, because we are creators,
mm-hmm.
and what we say, what we focus on, helps to create the matrix around us, or pushes the matrix in a certain direction, which is why there's such a push for steering the human consciousness, NPC and organic consciousness alike, in certain political directions. And somebody had just written me an email or sent me a comment or something. I need to start just logging all of these and just, having a list and going, all right, we're going to go here, 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 because this was really, really insightful. But the idea that none of this stuff actually happens until we believe that it's happened, until we speak it into existence. So, there's this huge bombing in Syria, for example, and it doesn't actually happen until we, as the organic divine consciousness, start to believe that it happened and acknowledge that it happened, start speaking it into existence and repeating it over the airwaves over and over and over and over and over again. And then once we do that, then the event has actually been manifested. Very, very esoteric and a type of philosophy there, but I'm wondering if there is some truth to that.
I think you're onto something there. And Dawn's to what's the name? She made a huge donation just a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow!
The letter we received.
Oh,
yes.
We have been meaning to send something back to you. Thank you so much for that. And it was on behalf of her mother, if I remember correctly, who had just recently passed away. Mm-hmm. And she made a very generous donation to the station in memory of her mother. And we greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate that, and wish your mother a speedy journey to outside of the matrix, or to the next destination, mm-hmm. whatever she chooses. And we put all of our loving intention into her having the choice.
Right.
That's what it's all about, having the choice.
It really
do I
is.
want to go back, or do I want to get out of the matrix this time?
Mm-hmm.
But the energy was definitely received, and greatly, greatly appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. Jose wants to know about your take on the SpaceX thing.
On the SpaceX. Man, if I say anything about the SpaceX, people are going to get pissed off. Doesn't matter what I say.
Okay.
So I did see one interesting video by Jeranism this morning, though.
Oh.
So apparently this is what happened. And Jeranism had the proof for this. So it's not just speculation here. So when SpaceX was launching, and they were supposedly showing two screens, one rocket here and one rocket here, as it was landing and as it was doing several different things. And these two screens looked exactly alike to one another.
Identical.
And people were pointing it out and saying, hey, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. Look, both of these rockets are showing the exact same camera views, even though these rockets are supposed to be in different places.
Locations, yeah.
So Jaron said, hey, this is BS, because he went back to the live stream, replayed it, and now they're showing two completely different videos in those little boxes. So you've got one for one rocket and one for the other rocket. And Jaron said, I remember watching this live, and it showed two identical images. And it wasn't just this one particular view, but it was several views throughout the duration of the live streaming. And Jaren's like calling this out as bullshit and saying, hey, this is bullshit. Elon Musk and SpaceX have been able to go back and retroactively change something that's supposed to be a live stream. Like when you stream live, you can't go back and change the footage. You can trim it, and that's about it. Like you can go in, like we trim out the first couple of minutes where we're playing intro music and stuff like that. But you can't actually go in it and replace footage.
You can't replace footage.
Not like that.
Yeah.
And so Jaren found another channel that was actually streaming based on the original live stream.
Oh.
And was like, look at this shit. Here's the original
totally
live stream right
different.
here, and here's what SpaceX has on their freaking on their archive right now that says streamed live. This is impossible without some high level collusion between Google and SpaceX. And Jaren's like, what the hell's going on here? Why are they able to retroactively change their live stream data, et cetera, et cetera? So if it wasn't for the fact that you have physical proof here, that could be called into question. But there's fuckery going on, without a doubt. I mean, and Jaren framed it as changing history. Like, they're changing history here. And they are, when you really think about it. They're going back and changing their live stream data, which is impossible. So what accounts for that? Like, how do you take that? In what perspective? Do you say, okay, well, maybe they're just changing it for the record, but it doesn't say anything about it being edited or anything like that. But then with all the other different anomalies that are popping up during this launch, you have to ask yourself too, like, if the car, and this was also other stuff that Jaren brought up. I mean, Jaren's just been really just dissecting this up and down the line. Jarenism is the name of the YouTube channel, if you're not familiar with it, and Globebusters as well, who's in the house. Check out Globebusters channel. They really tackle all of this stuff. But one of the things that he brought up is that when the metal gets out to space, according to NASA, a astronaut has to use special gloves, and the metal has to be a certain metal, because once it gets out to a certain part in space, then the heat, being in the sunlight, gets up to like 200 degrees Celsius, if not more. Like, I mean, they're ridiculously hot, and then it falls to ridiculously cold temperatures also when it's not in direct sunlight. And this is out in the middle of space here. So if you've got this car that has not been fitted to be out in space, and Elon Musk himself said they didn't do anything special to the car, it's just a regular car, this thing should be burning up. And Jaren was also showing pictures of cars that have been here just on the ground, that have been exposed to heat that was
like
over
volcanoes and stuff like that.
Well, there was this building, and this building that they constructed, they thought it was going to be a great work of art and a great monumental thing, and it was built with all these mirrors. But what was happening is all these mirrors were creating so much heat that anybody parked underneath that, their cars were being freaking melted, like literally.
Oh, wow.
And they're trying to figure out, how do we deal with this freaking building that's melting all of these cars here? So looking at that, you can see how cars would melt under that kind of heat. And there's a lot of documentation on this, photos everywhere. So the same rules should apply in space as well.
They should.
It's not. This whole thing is, it's got a lot of weirdness. And then Mark Sargent pointed out the fact that the tires should be popping under, the no pressure and high pressure and all that stuff that's going on in space, but it's just like regular tires that are out floating in space. They haven't popped. They haven't done anything. And then the whole, it looked like the intro to Heavy Metal, the cartoon Heavy Metal. And
it looks a lot like
a lot of anomalies, lot of anomalies surrounding this. So
I don't know what to think about it. But
so
obviously, because it looks so fake, it has to be real.
Well, that's true. I mean, according to Elon Musk, it's real because it looks
so fake.
This is the reality that we're living in now. So,
yeah, you have to believe something if it looks fake as crap. But if it looks real, then it's probably not legit. I don't know the logic.
SpaceX Falcon X Heavy, you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. Globebusters, I agree. So,
okay, so
here's the way I see flat Earth. It's like algebra. So you've got to have algebra in order to be able to understand trigonometry. it's a key component. If you can't go through that key, if you can't learn that key component, you can't figure out the next picture there.
Right.
So, I don't think it's the end all be all.
It's part of the journey.
But I think it's a huge, huge, huge part of it. And just the idea of questioning the very foundation of planet Earth in and of itself, regardless of what the actual conclusion is, leads you to the next step, which is then questioning all of reality and starting to see things in that full illusionary perspective that we find ourselves in when we really, really step deep, deep, deep beyond the veil.
Yes.
So I commend all the flat Earth people out there.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, I think you guys have done incredible stuff to raise the consciousness level.
I think so too. And you just reminded me of something else that I went over in my ayahuasca journey tonight, and that I've been thinking about for a few weeks now, and that is the Mandela Effect. And we were looking for a rice cooker. This is how I come across information. We were looking for a rice cooker that wouldn't burn the rice, and that you could keep the rice in for like 24 or 48 hours and not have to worry about it. And it said that the newer rice cookers have something called fuzzy logic. And fuzzy logic is when a computer system will fill in the blanks with information that may or may not be a yes or no. It may not be a yes or no answer. It could be sometimes it gets up to 160 degrees. Sometimes it needs to be 150 degrees. And it will make concessions for those changes in the way that the machine operates. And I think that's what's happening with the Mandela Effect, because if you notice, it's not huge things that are changing with the Mandela Effect. Usually it's something really small or really insignificant, which is part of the reason why a lot of people say, the Mandela Effect is stupid, because so you think the Nazis or something, had this huge conspiracy to change Berenstein to Berenstain, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is these small little changes, because they're insignificant, mean that it's a result of something called fuzzy logic, where the system is actually filling in the blanks as it goes along, because there's data missing or corrupted in the system. And I think that's the result of this virus that we keep talking about. I think it's also leaving huge holes in the database of information that makes up this reality. So it's just filling in the blanks.
It's a self-correcting computer code. And it's based on Claude Shannon's code that was developed in the freaking 40s. Mm-hmm. Like, how much more freaking confirmation do you need when space-time and string theory all comes down to a guy's code who was written in the 40s? Like,
right.
That was the number one factor.
Reality.
And for anybody that's not familiar with what I'm referencing, it's Professor Gates, Gates, not related to Bill Gates. But look him up, and he's a quantum physicist that found a computer code that was written in the 1940s in string theory. Mm-hmm. You just simply cannot get that in a real environment, because the only logical thing in a real environment would be that this Claude Shannon guy channeled this complex computer code from the fabric of reality.
Right.
It's illogical. It does not compute.
It doesn't make any sense, considering that computers back then were as big as a house. So, Dusty Blue wants to know how we both crossed paths, and was it synchronicity that we met?
Before we get to that, let's do this Alex Jones thing before we fall too far away from that. And I got to take another break anyways.
Okay.
So we'll be right back.
You're going to live in a tank and be tied into this virtual world. You'll be able to wire your head in and just get unlimited pleasure. It'll feel like 10 times the best orgasm for 3 days if you want straight. They're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. The DMT. There's the owners of Truth Frequency Radio. They believe they're communicating with entities. They call them clockwork elves. I'm not going to get into what they're interfacing with. They believe they're in contact with off-world groups. Geo, True Frequency Radio, he takes it, you see the elves, little green hats. We're in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. We're in trouble. The clockwork elves, all of it, I shouldn't even get into it. There's a reason they're all whacked out of their minds. They're taking DMT. And the point is that their whole science is way ahead. We don't even know what they've got. They're in power because they're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Geo took the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Geo took the DMT. You think they're all a bunch of old men? They're in power because they were into this stuff 70 years ago. The DMT. They were jacking DMT 70 years ago. They were injecting it. They're taking the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Geo took the DMT. Hitler took the DMT. Stalin took the DMT. Mao took the DMT. Truth Frequency Radio took the DMT. I shouldn't even get into it.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mistress speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into it here. I think the little twin is getting worn out, so we are going to wrap it up here in just a few moments. But you got to a question before the break, so would you like to go over that?
I did, and it was from Dusty Blue House. Said, how did you both cross paths? Was it synchronicity? If so, great. Or another view, share if okay. Also, how have you each evolved in this moment?
I was pushing the envelope when it comes to consciousness. You know, some will consider it trolling, but I really wasn't trolling.
No, he really was asking for good reasons.
People to think outside of the standard box that they were in on the Prison Planet forum.
And I was
And Sheree was a moderator.
one of the moderators.
Yeah, one of the moderators on the Prison Planet forum.
Minor moderator.
So it's funny how things come full circle here. We are, you know, Alex has played, you know, a key role in our journey here. And, you know, we used to take everything so seriously back then. And now, you know, we're at a point now we can poke fun and, you know, things like that at ourselves and where we were back then and the journey and the way it's progressed and play little Alex Jones remixes and stuff like that.
And I was obsessed with eugenics.
Yes, Sheree was all about the vaccines and eugenics and stuff like that. So we started talking a little bit and I was engaged to be married to typical standard Greek girl that mom always wanted me to find. You know, that was the cookie cutter life that was laid out for me then. but it didn't feel right. And one of the problems was ayahuasca.
Uh-huh.
When I rediscovered myself with ayahuasca, I started to question the very foundation of my reality at that point, and whether I was, what path I was on and things like that. And so I was talking to Sheree a little bit. No thoughts, no thoughts of anything whatsoever. We always were very professional with each other, and we would just, exchange information and things like that. But I started to veer more away from the line of thinking of my fiance and more into a different type of thinking. And it was kind of going into the truth box, but at the same time, it's funny because the ayahuasca, as I was going through the truth box, also pulled me out of the truth box. It was like the ayahuasca was like that factor that was like, okay, you're in this box, but we're going to keep you as close.
You don't have to stay in the box.
Stay as close to the edge of the box as you can, even though you want to just dive right in head first and just go right down to the middle of the truth movement stuff. But the ayahuasca always kept me kind of in bounds, and then, keeping me from falling too much into that box. But we wound up meeting like that. And then I just made a joke. Like, it was like literally a joke. She lived 3 hours away from me. And so I said, hey.
Is that the right time?
Yeah. I said, hey, I'm going to see David Icke. Do you want to run off with me and go see David Icke in Santa Fe? And she goes, yeah. And I said, really?
Yes,
goes,
come pick me up.
Yes, come pick me up.
I know it's 3 hours out of your way, but yeah, come and pick me up and let's go see David Icke. It was at just the right time for everything to happen in my life, as far as my consciousness level was. I needed to be with my twin. I didn't know who. I knew that you were important to me as soon as I heard your music, and it was just like something resonated within me so deeply that I knew that you were going to be an important person in my life from then on. I knew something was big about me and you, and I just didn't realize what it was. And about a year later, I had a death in my now ex-husband and his family, and it took me away from the forum for, I think, 7 or 8 months. And so I was, busy with family stuff. And when I came back, him and his fiance were having problems, and
yeah, we'd split up.
Yeah.
And then Sheree told me, go back and get her.
Yeah, I told him,
like, right.
You need to give it one more shot,
And I did.
Because I didn't want, to be a rebound person. And I honestly wasn't ready for the twin flame relationship to totally begin yet. And so it was like a year before we finally, were like, okay, we can't stay away from each other. We've got to meet up somehow. And when you said that about David Icke, I'm like, that's perfect. Because that's not, picking someone up and then going and having sex for 3 days in a motel. This is, something that's a consciousness raising activity that it signaled a very distinct turning point in my life.
Yeah.
Consciousness wise.
18 hours. Sheree drove the majority of the time.
Yeah, I did.
She was like, this freaking asshole here. He's in the back of his truck sleeping.
Well,
and I'm driving.
Oh, I didn't mind. I really didn't.
So yeah. And then we, met David Icke, like literally the first time we were together. And David was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was.
For the most part.
He was nice.
A little grumpy at certain people, not us, but just,
yeah.
And then
it was a rough time for him in his life.
Yeah, he was going through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And then we kind of came back, and the first instinct was, let's start a radio show and get our message out there. And we started Truth Frequency. And we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Like, the first show was so bad, we don't even keep it in our archives. We don't even keep it
in the archives, no.
We were on Blog Talk, and we were using phones. And we didn't realize until the last minute that the phones actually had a delay. So she actually had to go in the other room, so we weren't hearing the delays coming through on the phones and things like that. And then the guest didn't show up, and we were like,
awful.
"Oh my God, what do we do?" And it just kind of
So we just talked.
Evolved from there, yeah. And then I had all this equipment, but I didn't know how to implement it into the setup into the system for Blog Talk.
For audio, yeah.
So we were like, the next couple shows were like sharing a microphone, and then we're like, oh, well, let me break this down into a mixer. Let me do this, let me do that. And it just kind of evolved from there. And where we were back then was two young, dumb kids. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And we knew that we had a message. We knew that we wanted to get it out there to people. And that was that. But we didn't really realize what we were up against and getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
Because you come into this arena with a pure heart and the naivety that comes with lack of experience.
Right.
And we encountered some really, really, really bad people in the truth movement. I mean, like really horrible people.
Really dangerous NPCs.
Yes. And it created all of a sudden like, whoa, wait a minute. It was like that realization, like, oh, not everybody's in it for the same reasons we are. Like, this is, you wouldn't think, like, you think that the New World Order is such a huge adversary that everybody's putting their own bullshit to the side to unite together to take out this New World Order, and that was the whole truther path. And then getting hit like that, I mean, just bam, smacked upside the face. No, rude awakening. Rude awakening doesn't even describe it. And then what happens, we found ourselves disconnecting from literally everybody. And we were suspicious of everybody at that point. And we're like, okay, let's just keep doing what we're doing and just stay away from everybody. And we were actually working against ourselves because we weren't building relationships and community and things like that, because we were so shell-shocked from the first encounter with these horrible people. Like, if you understood what these people were into, and it's only in hindsight that we're able to really piece all the puzzles together, but they were into some pretty dark, messed up stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say they had children in their basements, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did.
Right.
Let's just put it like that.
Right.
So then, after the shell shocking and growing up and working with the ayahuasca more and more and more, and coming to these real revelations and realizations internally, then it's like, okay, the number one lesson at that point was discernment. And it was a lesson that took years and years and years to learn. But once the discernment was honed, then we were like, okay, now we can distinguish the good people from the bad people. Now we understand the game that's being played. See, we were jumping into the game without understanding how the game was being played, or the algorithm, or any of that. And so by understanding that, now we're like, okay, cool. We can start building community. We can start building relationships. We can start, interacting with people, and at the same time using our discernment to know who to stay away from and who to embrace.
Well, and usually, because my astrology and tarot skills will usually alert us to people that are not good for us, or that have malintent towards us. The tarot can especially weed them out 99 times out of 100. Or our own, we get these feelings about people, and it 99% of the time turns out to be totally correct. So we just follow that now. When before we didn't have anything to go off of except, New World Order bad, everyone else good. And it didn't work. It doesn't work like that.
So it's come, you asked how we have evolved and where we were back then and where we are now.
That's how.
I feel like it's a much more grown up way of looking at things now, a much more mature way of looking at things, and understanding there's a duality in everything, understanding that there is an agenda behind everything. For example, I posted something on Facebook that raised a lot of controversy, but the truth is the truth here. So I saw this meme that was Nestle CEO saying water is not a human right. And I've seen this meme circulate a million times over, and I've seen all these other little memes and quotes that I've, to myself, debunked. And I'm not a debunker, so I don't go out and try to make a show out of this, but every once in a while, I'll post some of my findings that I found in my own particular search for truth. And so I said, okay, well, let's take a look at this quote that supposedly where this guy said all this stuff. Because I want to understand the context here. I want to understand from a PR level, like just from a PR level, why the hell would a CEO come out and say that, even if that was their agenda? Okay, I'm not saying that that's not their agenda, but let's just, let's look at it from a PR level here. How is it that this CEO came out and said water is not a human right, and now he's demonized all over the place? So I went to the original source material, and it comes from several different things. There was a blog, he had a blog at the time, and when he did this particular interview on this particular video, he said there's two lines of thinking. He said some of the NGOs for the United Nations believe that water is a human right and that's it. And he says, I think that's an extreme solution. He said there's other lines of thinking that think it's not a human right. And he says, he goes on to speak about that, and they cut him off at a particular point. And then I saw a Russia Today, a Russia Today story where they actually took out the words, there is NGOs in the UN that believe that water is a human right. They just cut that part out, and they just said water is a human right. That's an extreme view. I believe different, and completely chopped it up. And then started painting a picture that this company, Nestle, is buying millions of gallons of water at $3 a piece and selling them for $2 million. And she's like, that is a 20,000 million trillion markup in this and that. And it's a really, really emotionally charged report. And I was watching it and going, hey, wait a minute. As I was re-examining this, I remember seeing this back, 5 years ago and being legitimately pissed off about this. But seeing it from an entirely new perspective, I started thinking to myself, now, wait a minute. She's saying that there's this, 200 million trillion % markup on this. But hold on, you're not accounting the costs of moving the water from one place to another, bottling the water, paying employees, paying healthcare, paying all this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, this is, it seems like hype here. So what's the truth? Let me get to the truth here. So I went to his blog, and I was actually reading about what was going on his blog during this particular time that he actually said this. And so I found that he said, okay, there's, let me clarify this, okay, just for the record. Water is a human right for survival, but the problem that we're running into is that it's not a human right for people to water their lawns and wash their cars and et cetera, and people should pay for that. And I started thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, how does it work here in the United States? Is water a human right in the United States? It's really not. We pay our water bill. If we don't pay our water bill, it gets shut off. This is what is going on in the United States here. What he was actually referring to was India. In India, they turned water into a human right. And there's no electric bill. There's no water bill. There is no nothing like that. So what he was saying is that some NGOs, like the ones who are speaking on behalf of India and other places like that, what was happening is that people were running out of drinking water because the industries and the farmers were using so much of it that the water table was actually going down, and it wasn't leaving enough for people to actually freaking drink. And he's like, water should have a market value, and people that use more of it should pay more, just like it is in the United States. So he wasn't even talking about any other country. He was talking about what was going on in India at the time. And so I was reading all this and going, wow, this completely changes the dynamic here. So I started looking at a bunch of other quotes, and I was looking at other quotes before this particular quote, and I started to realize that all the truther stuff started falling apart. And you would think like Russia Today is somebody you can trust, but when you see an emotionally charged report like that with a specific purpose to play on somebody's emotion and steer their views based on chopped up misinformation. I mean, when you're leaving out key elements of something, that's kind of lying by omission there, so you're leaving out the key context of what actually is going on. It's very easy to demonize literally everybody. Now, am I saying that Nestle is an up and up company? Not at all, not by any means whatsoever. What I'm illustrating here is the strength and the power and discernment in your own particular journey for truth. And you don't have to prove it to anybody. You don't have to go out and convince other people. You don't have to do that. It's just when you start to analyze things from your own particular perspective, and based on your own investigation and own analysis, you start to realize that there is literally a freaking agenda around every freaking stone you turn. Like you've got one agenda on one hand, another agenda on another hand. The truth movement has an agenda. The New World Order has an agenda. Everybody has a freaking agenda. And it's like a war on consciousness. And as Alex says, it's a war for your mind. It really is.
It's a war for dichotomy. It's supposed to be creating dichotomies within your own mind about, okay, am I for this? Okay, I'm for this and I'm against this. And I'm for that and I'm against that. And then this goes in the yes pile and then this goes in the no pile. Oh, wait, the people that told me the thing that made me put this in the yes pile were lying to me the whole time. So I'm going to put it in the no pile. Okay, wait a second. The people in the no pile are also lying to me.
Right.
Okay, what
right.
do I do? Yeah, if you become polarized, then you're prone to that kind of confusion and, chasing your tail kind of thing. So that's why I don't get polarized on anything anymore.
Yeah, I started looking at different things like Albert Pike, for example, the quote of the 3 World Wars. And I realized that quote was taken from a conspiracy book. And he uses the term like Islam and a couple of other terms that weren't actually used or didn't exist when this quote was supposedly written. So I found out that quote was plagiarized by somebody and changed. And I found the original source material. And the original source material was in a conspiracy book. And that quote has turned out to be completely and totally fabricated. Like he just made it up out of nowhere. So you've got one guy making up a quote. You've got another guy taking that quote, changing words on it, and then publishing it. And I realized all of these things started falling apart one after another after another. The JFK thing, for example, where he says there's a plot to enslave every man, woman, and child in this country, and I will not leave this high and noble office until I expose this plot. And it's 7 days before his assassination. So I started looking at some JFK speeches prior to his assassination. The last speech that he gave was at Columbia University, and it was 10 days, not 7 days, and he didn't say anything of the sorts during that speech. So I looked at a couple of speeches before, a couple of speeches, never said anything like that at all, completely and totally fabricated quote. And it makes me wonder, like, why are they fabricating these quotes and running, putting them out there as conspiracy fact? What are they trying to shift the consciousness of mankind to, or the consciousness of the observer? And then I realized that throughout the truth movement journey, I was actually repeating a lot of stuff that was essentially comes down to John Birch Society propaganda, Christian right propaganda. One of the things is pointing the finger at the Freemasons. Oh, it's the Freemasons this, the Freemasons that, et cetera, et cetera. And this whole Bible thumping, close the borders, 1776, all of this stuff. And then the ultimate revelation, which was realizing what the New World Order actually is. It's not a borderless society. It's not people running free throughout the entire world, but rather it is people in cities that can't go from one city to another without being identified 10 times over, and little factions that there is a controlling entity over all of these particular factions. But it's not about borderless societies. It's about keeping people as locked in the smallest grid possible, which is why they're pushing people into cities, and they're trying to create mega cities and things like that. And so realizing this perspective of understanding what the New World Order actually is, and the John Birch Society 1776 closed the borders, realizing that the truth movement at the same time is pushing the exact same New World Order agenda and working to play out the New World Order agenda perfectly, because they're doing exactly what the New World Order wants them to do. And it's like, oh crap, you've got all the players on the board, and some of them don't even realize this. They're like genuine in their heart. They're genuine in their journey. I was genuine in my journey. You've got all these players on the board, all being pushed in the exact same direction. And then you have this false dichotomy of false opposition. And at the core of it, it becomes a self-policing, controlled opposition. Because when I was doing all the truther stuff, I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, I better not say this because it might upset the truthers. Oh, this doesn't fit with my conspiracy box, so I better not say this. I would have all these thoughts, but I would never speak my mind from my heart. I would never go against the grain. because I just thought I was supposed to stay in this little box. And so the realization of that and breaking all of that and saying, fuck this shit, I'm going to speak from my heart. I've got all these original thoughts. I've got all these original ideas. I've got all this original analysis. I'm going to say it regardless of who gets pissed off and who doesn't. It changed the game. But, you know, throughout this entire journey, there is all of that illusion, one after another, after another, after another, after another, that we find ourselves in.
Yes, definitely. Somebody wants to know, Dusty also wants to know, how have you grown at present? How are you growing at present? Or I think the question is, what are we doing now to continue to grow, to help ourselves continue to grow?
I think right now we're still breaking down the illusionary nature of reality altogether. I mean, you know, when I say it's an illusion over and over and over again, until you see it, you can't really fully grasp it. Some of you may feel it, and you know, that feeling is vital in all of this. But as I said, it's one illusion after another, after another, after another, and it's all exists right here
in the mind.
It all exists in consciousness. It all comes down at the end of the day to the war on consciousness. Control consciousness, keep consciousness boxed in one way or another. And this is why I think people are so gung-ho against psychedelics, and people are so gung-ho against ayahuasca and things like that, because this stuff breaks it. Like, if it wasn't for the ayahuasca in the background of this entire journey, I never would have been able to see beyond the illusion.
So true.
So now that we're here at this point, it's breaking down the illusion more and more and helping to shine the light on the door, to show the illusion to others as well. And I think at the core of this is that we are creating an energy field within ourselves, the raw consciousness, the divine consciousness, as we are starting to light up and illuminate together. And this energy field is creating a force that is, as I think it was Dusty or somebody said this in the chat, that is actually correcting a lot of this stuff by us shining the lights, by us existing, by us thinking in certain ways and retaking control of the ability to create and creating bigger and better things within this AI virus infected matrix. And I think at the end of the day, this consciousness field that we are generating, it's not a unified consciousness because we are individual creators.
Right.
And individuality is our strength. It's not a weakness. It's not that we have to merge with each other. It's not a source consciousness. It's not any of that. But rather we are individual creators coming together and uniting for a common goal. And I think that we're coming up to the final card that's being played here against this particular machine.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, I think what the way that I continue growing is I leave all options on the table as far as ideologically. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about ideological belief systems. I'm talking about ideas. If nowadays, see, because I used to be the kind of person that I would have an idea, a strange idea or a funny idea, as Terrence McKenna would call it, and then the ego would step in and say, "Nope, you're not allowed to think like that. No, there are rules here, and you can't think. You can't think outside those rules, outside those boundaries." And so now I look at anything, you know, flat Earth, round Earth, you know, concave Earth, whatever, and I look at it from the perspective of everything's possible. Anything and everything is definitely possible in this reality. And I also, I try not to jump to conclusions about anything anymore. If somebody's telling me that somebody else is bad, then I want to know about the person saying the other person's bad first before I find out about the other person that's supposedly bad. Because, you know, you've got to see things from a 360-degree perspective, and not making snap judgments about things or people and a host of other things. It's really all about leaving everything open for discernment to step in and kind of fish out what's real and what's not. So
I think so.
Yeah.
We had a question here from Dawn. We're getting deep now, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I didn't expect to go so deep in this. And like I said, explaining this is one thing. Actually seeing it is another. I can't find the question. Oh, here it is. Chris and Sheree, do you feel self-resilience within helps us to evolve? Do you feel that self-resilience within helps us to evolve for the greater good?
I think that if I'm receiving this message correctly, I get that you're asking about the terrible things that we've gone through in our lives. Do those make us self-resilient, and then as a result of that self-resilience, we're able to discern a lot more. We're able to perceive a lot more of this reality without being so freaked out about it that we just run and hide under the covers. I think that's the question.
I think that is key to. I've always admired ducks because ducks, the water just falls right off their back. They can go
get cold
deep into the water if they want. They can fly and they can go on land. They can, they're masters of all the environment around them. And so I've always said, like, you've got to be like a duck. You've got to be able to operate in any environment, air, water, and metaphorically, of course, air, water, land, and also be shielded from all of the stuff that's constantly hitting you. I mean, we watch the ducks here in freaking freezing weather just pop on down, and they'll go down for like 20, well, not 20 minutes. It feels like 20 minutes sometimes. I mean, they're
watching
they're
them,
down there for like 3 or 4 minutes, and they'll pop out on the other side of the lake. I'm like, oh my God, wow, how did you guys do that? They've just become kind of masters of their environment. So I think we can pick one of their feathers and take that as an example of being able to navigate within the matrix like that, and understanding, like, when we're going through these seemingly negative experiences, maybe a door closes in your particular journey, another one's going to open immediately after, and understanding that ever-changing nature of life and expecting the ups and downs and lefts and rights and embracing them as they come, because the ups and downs are always heralding something better and better and better, as opposed to being a passenger or a victim or caught in the whirlwind of the cycle of life. Rather, you become the architect of your own life. You become the architect of your reality. And then it comes to, in my opinion, abilities to be able to manifest reality, to be able to change physical matter, to be telepathic, to read people's energies, to be able to not necessarily read minds in the sense that I know what you're thinking, but read minds in the sense of I feel your intentions. And we did a couple of videos about this freaking cool thing that happened where I was able to like manifest the freaking key in the car that was stuck and fix the ignition like that. And it was a first time experiment, and it was successful the first time. But that's at that point where the journey becomes like, okay, so now we understand all of this information. The next step now is put this information into practice to change our reality all around us. And it takes time, it takes ability, it takes focus, and it may not work the first time, may not work the second time, may not work the 100th time, but it's that focus, and now you're actually putting that information to use, and then you ultimately become the master of your particular reality.
Beautifully said.
I think that's it.
Yep. I think that's the bottom line of all of this is become the master of your own reality. Become the creator. Step into that role. You can't step into that role though if you're, like Chris said, if you want a door that's already been closed to open back up, and you're so focused on that door opening back up, then you're going to completely miss the door down the hall that magically is open now. So
right.
Yeah.
Here's a method that I think I can share with everybody. I've talked about this in previous videos: practical geometry versus sacred geometry. Sacred geometry, tapping into that is tapping into the actual code that makes up the actual physical reality that's manifesting in front of us. But practical geometry is the physical manifestation of the sacred geometry. So we start to realize that a lot of the negative experiences that we're experiencing really are not because of some kind of physical pressure upon us. There are some experiences people go through, like what we're talking about in the first hour, the kids being locked in the basement. This is, a completely different thing that I'm talking about here. Those type of experiences aside, the typical stressful experience that we experience in life has to do with thought, and that's it. You can sit in a room and you open up the mailbox and you've got a bill that's overdue, and you're like, stressing out over that bill. You don't know what you're going to do about this. And so you realize at that point that, at least for me, I start to put myself in a space of looking at the actual geometry of the environment. What am I standing in front of? I'm standing in front of a mailbox, right? I'm holding a piece of paper. That's all that exists within that particular moment. So anything outside of that, all of the feelings and anxieties and all of that I'm putting onto the experience is not actually the experience itself, but rather it is a manifestation of my own mind. It's a manifestation of my own thoughts. So then I start to worry myself more and more and more and more. And it's just all illusionary manifested within the mind. So the ability to be able to disconnect from those negative thought patterns, the thought loops, and also disconnect from the stress by understanding the practical geometry that's around, then you start to make a distinction between what are experiences that are actually applying physical pressure on me versus what are experiences that are applying mental and emotional pressures on me. And then when you can separate those two, then you can look at those experiences that you're going through and say, okay, well, I understand. I'm creating all of this. I'm creating this whole freaking emotional mountain over this experience. It's not real. It's just an emotional experience that I'm having within my mind. Separate myself from that. Now that I've divested myself of all of that, those negative thought patterns, now I'm going to look at the practical geometry of the environment, and then I can better assess the situation, and I can better deal with the situation and create or manifest an outcome that is much less stressful, much more conducive to a positive outcome, and devoid of all those negative thought patterns that keep on circulating in our minds over and over and over and over again. I used to worry about everything under the freaking sun. It was freaking, it's one of those things, as a man, most men out there, I think can relate to this. You feel obligated to take care of your wife. You feel obligated to take care of your family. If money's not going well, for example, then obviously you're going to stress about that all the time. But I found myself in those times in the beginning of our relationship when things were like that, I found myself stressing myself out over and over and over again, and then actually taking this stress into the ayahuasca experience. Mm-hmm. So rather than the ayahuasca experience being the deeper levels of gnosis, the ayahuasca experiences revolved around the constant worry and stress that I was creating in my mind over and over and over again. And it was being able to take that into the ayahuasca realm that helped me to realize the illusionary nature of the thought patterns and loops that would take place and remove myself from those, because I was actually able to see it in the realm as opposed to just feel it. And this is another way that ayahuasca really helps you to visualize a lot of this stuff. So removing myself from all of those fears and worries and emotions, et cetera, I was able to better plan and make better strategies for the future, which actually manifested themselves in a very, very positive way. But even during that time, it wasn't necessarily a worry of having a lack of, but rather it became a worry of, oh, what happens if I lose everything that I have now? And so I realized I was stressing myself out over completely nothing. Like, it was just all manifestations of my mind completely swirling around in all these different, worry thought patterns. And it wasn't even based on anything real. Like, it was based on the worry of losing what I had. How ridiculous is that? You're in a perfectly happy situation. Everything is great under normal circumstances, except for the negative thought patterns come into your mind and cloud everything that's happening.
Right. And so and you can't, at that point, you can't even trust the data set that's coming into your brain from your environment because it's going to be tainted or at least a little bit, color hued by that overwhelming anxiety.
Right.
So
I think those are the number one things to implement right here, right now.
mhm.
Understand the practical geometry. And then when you understand the practical geometry, then you take it to a sacred geometry level. And then you understand the sacred geometry that's actually making up reality. And then from that point, you're able to start changing the sacred geometry. But you can't change the sacred geometry if you're creating all of these illusionary thought patterns in your mind that are adding extra stress and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
I was asking in the realm. I was like, how do I explain all this to people? And I think we're breaking that right
Yeah.
now. I think we're coming to those realizations. So thank you for provoking
everyone.
these thoughts. And one thing I do want to say to Dawn's, she's the one that who recently lost her mother, right?
And her mother was a 94-year-old listener of TFR. So she loved our show. She loved Frank's show. She loved everybody's show.
Aww.
So she was a big listener.
It's amazing how, 94 years old.
Organic consciousness doesn't know age.
That's amazing. That really is.
Especially in this reality.
I lost my mother in 2010, December 24th, 2010, on Christmas Eve, on top of all this. And it took a piece of me, for sure. And what happened is I found myself still clinging to those negative emotions. And as I was clinging to them during the grieving process, which everybody goes through, there's nothing wrong with the grieving process whatsoever. But maybe putting it in a better perspective helps to not only get through the grieving process quicker, but also get to the real essence of what's going on here. And what's going on is bigger and greater than ever imagined during the grieving process. The first instinct is, I feel loss. Oh my God, this person's gone. What am I going to do? This
is unfair. Yeah.
It's been what, 9 years since I've talked to my mom? I used to talk to her every single day. I couldn't imagine, but then as the time progressed, I started to let go of that grieving process. And then what happened is once I cleared out all of that grieving process, I cleared out all of those negative emotions surrounding it and putting myself in the other side. Like, if I went, would I want everybody sitting around like completely just in shambles over me being gone? I wouldn't want that. Like, nobody wants that. So you put all that to the side and realize, oh, okay, well, the pain that I'm feeling, it's a very real emotion, but it also is a selfish emotion. It's an emotion around the self. It's only because of the loss of that person. It's not because that person is in a horrible place. It's not like that person is suffering and you're like, oh my God, this person is suffering. Two different things. So then you clear out all those negative emotions, and then what happens is now your vision is clear, and then the relationship you had with your mother becomes way more illuminated than it could ever be while she was here, and way more illuminated than it could ever be during the grieving process. And then you start to realize how much this person has embedded in yourself, how much this person has sacrificed for you, how much this person went above and beyond and did all of these amazing things that you couldn't recognize in the physical while this person was here, and you couldn't see in the grieving process. And then you become that much more grateful and that much more connected to that person by letting those emotions go. It's something that I've been trying to explain to my sister, still 8 years and 9 years, and she's still in the grieving process. And I'm like, look, it's okay to let go of that. You're not letting go of her. You're letting go of the hurt that's surrounding the situation. That's it. You're just letting go of the hurt. And if your mother passed away just recently, it takes some time to get to that point. I totally understand. But, consider that the next step. Like, this is what happens after you go through the grieving process. Like my sister, she will not leave Houston because my mother's buried there. And I'm like, there is so much more life out there. And she's like, well, mom's buried here. And I'm like, Mom is inside of you now, okay? You're connected to her now. She's not laying in a freaking tomb somewhere. She's everywhere now, and she's connected inside of you. It's okay. Go live your life. Go have new experiences and really fully understand who this person was to you. So I don't know how recent this was, but I know that this helped me after all of this. So
Yeah, I think it was only just a few months ago. It was in December, I believe. So
they always go in December.
they always go in December. Yeah.
I was just speaking to another guy, and his wife just passed away, and he's
Right.
like 90 years old or something like that, and she passed away in December too.
Yeah.
It's always December.
Yeah. It's the end of the Roman calendar year. But actually, it used to be the case where I think the beginning of the year in Egypt was August, and the beginning of the year in Western Europe used to be in April, in March or April. So, but according to the Roman calendar that ends in December, that's the end of the year, which is also the end of, I guess a lot of people see it as like, okay, this is the end of my life too. So lots of endings in December. So.
Yes. So remember, you have the ultimate power. You have the ultimate control. You have the ultimate control of your mind.
You do.
You can choose what thought loops you engage in, what thought loops you don't engage in, all up and down the line. I mean, think about what you're putting into your consciousness. Are you constantly focused on the negative stuff in the world? If you're constantly focused on the negative stuff, then your entire reality is going to be negative.
Or especially if you're an empathetic person.
Yeah. Likewise, if you're completely ignore all the negative stuff, then you're also polarized the opposite way.
You'll just become narcissistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all about balance. I think that's the last thing that I can leave everybody with is it's balance. And somebody said hashtag empath lives matter.
Empath lives matter.
Yeah. So, that's our strength. Our strength is the ability to love, feel compassion, and create these three things and empathize. These four things right here separate us from non-player character consciousness.
Yep.
And we genuinely have that ability. And that's why there is a war for our consciousness. It's not a war for the NPC consciousness. It's a war for our consciousness.
Right. And we love you guys.
Yes,
Y'all are
definitely. And we are going to wrap it up because I'm exhausted.
I am tired.
Sheree she brewed it twice, like double strength. Like in the Ayahuasca guide that we put out, we say 100 grams. And we don't really talk about this, but we have evolved beyond that. We use 200 in our brews, sometimes more. So one dose is now equal to 2 doses, and 2 doses is now equal to 4 doses. And
I don't take anything less than 50 grams now.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I was able to get on here and do a 3-hour show afterwards. But what's funny is I took the Syrian rue, I took the Cappy, and I took the Acacia. No purge.
No purge at all.
No stomach upset.
Yeah.
Nothing at all, period. And you would think from Syrian rue, at the very least, you would
Syrian
have
rue
some purging.
Almost always causes some purging, but
nothing
no.
at all. And I looked at Sheree and she goes, "You're clean.
You're
What
clean.
else?
Yeah.
If you're not purging, you're clean. Simple as that." So
there's nothing to purge.
Yep.
So.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Joanna, Athena, Kavos, Raw, T-Fetch, Jellyfish, Zombie Brain,
Dawn,
Joseph,
Milky
Way, all of you lovely ladies and
Athena,
gentlemen
everybody.
who have joined us. Yeah.
We love you. And yes, we will have a show tomorrow, probably.
Yeah. I think Frank said he wants to come on.
Oh, okay.
So we may
we might have
Frank on to
broadcast with Frank
to discuss everything. But like I said in the beginning of the show, there is no better way to come down off of ayahuasca and have these post-ayahuasca conversations that we always have than to do it with each and every one of you.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now the dynamics change from, oh my God, I saw this goddess and I saw that goddess and I went to hyperspace and I did that. Now it's like a more mature and grown-up way of looking at it. Okay, how can we apply this gnosis to our day-to-day lives? How can we apply this gnosis to bettering our community? How can we apply this gnosis to helping one another? And at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Again, thank you eternally. for being part of the Beyond the Veil community. And we'll see you next time as we step even further
Beyond the Veil. Love you.